AATBirds Weekly Report is the Eagle news, notes, and analysis you need. All about the birds. It's all birds, all the time.
And welcome to another edition here. And we're going to talk some undrafted free agents and minicamps coming up this weekend. So they're going to be on the field. I think the biggest thing here, guys, is we're going to see the number reveals. I know we started to get some from some of the veterans and everything. Let's see what numbers the rookies wear. I like that kind of stuff. I know it's not for everybody, but I guess maybe 1 year, I just hope to see a 25 or 71 or 12 and finally, break that essential retired number. But no, it's going to be fun. We're going to get into, we did Sunday, we talked about the Eagles NFL draft class, went over that. We may dip back into that with Chip here, but going to talk about the undrafted free agent class. And then there's some mini camp invites and a couple guys that I like. I know, Matt, you and I were talking a little bit about some of these guys who could potentially make the camp roster. So we'll take a look into that. Chip always loves this show because it brings him back to the old Adrian Killens when we signed him out of UCF, and I was all happy because of all that. And I got so much heat and everything on this show about it. But I always like it because undrafted free agency is always big for the Eagles because to me, like looking at it, every year they come back essentially with somebody that signs to the 53-man roster who was an undrafted free agent. Yeah. And they've had some pretty decent undrafted free agents in the last 10 years and also essentially the last basically 10, 15, 20 years. You can name an undrafted free agent that's put some quality time for the Eagles and has stepped up in big ways. But yeah. So how are we doing, fellas? Are we ready to talk some undrafted free agents?
Dude, I'm a sicko like this, just like you, man. I mean, I'm the one who records preseason games and watches
them over.
I just love watching these kids live out their dream and play some ball, man. Because like at the end of the day, these guys are contributing in special teams. They're your practice squad players that are getting your guys ready. I think a lot of that goes unrecognized by the fan base. They're giving them looks that they need to see in practice to prepare for opponents, and so these guys are a lot more important than I think most of the fan base gives them credit for. And these undrafted guys are always, we're Philly. We love the underdog story. So.
And I think on top of that, it also adds to the fact of, Johnny, like you said, we do end up putting some of these guys on our roster. And then Matt, kind of like you said, ever since the expansion of the practice squad, it really allows us to find those diamonds. And Howie, for some reason, I mean, he's good at finding these hidden gems. I mean, he wasn't undrafted, but the fact that Mailata is where he's at right now makes me excited for the fact of, like you see on our screen. I mean, that's a big boy from Rutgers. So if there's any level of success in Stoutland U, I mean, that's the one that intrigues me the most. If they can make that guy into a football player at the professional level, oh, mama.
So, getting into these undrafted guys.
Before we get into that, Johnny, I mean, you look at the success we've had with even starters. Like, we have these guys make rosters, but look at like major contributors that we've had, like Reed Blankenship, like TJ Edwards, and then Corey Clement. Like, we've had ridiculous success with undrafted free agents. So, like, we almost have to take it seriously in Philadelphia because of the success we've had.
And you look at Corey Clement. He had a humongous Super Bowl.
He was arguably the most important player in that Super Bowl outside of Nick Foles.
He made some huge plays. And, Eli Ricks is one that comes to mind recently. Britton Covey recently he was an undrafted free agent. And you look at the history of the Philadelphia Eagles, and a friend of the show, Hollis Thomas, was an undrafted free agent out of Northern Illinois back in '96. So, and he had a 10-year career with the Eagles. Like, and he played even longer than that in the NFL with some other teams too. So, like, the undrafted free agent is key, because especially now where it's not 12-round NFL draft anymore. It is a 7-round NFL draft, and there's still talent and there's players and you're able to get. And two, when you start looking at the implications of NIL and players staying a year longer because they can get a couple $1 million and still play, what that's going to do is the emphasis on the undrafted and late round draft picks is going to be key, because you're going to find guys that can be contributors who've played multiple years in the NFL, instead of guys who are just jumping after 2 years, 3 years out of high school. They're staying a little bit longer. So you have that, as well coming down the line. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Do you think, and again, this is kind of not the overall topic of the show, we're going to get to a point where, like, I think of the Shedeur Sanders slide, right? For whatever reason, you saw him sliding down the board. Is there going to be a point where, kind of like in baseball, you can be drafted to a team, but then like not go?
If you don't sign, you go back.
They were talking about that with Shedeur, but I don't think you can.
Well, no, he signed with an agent and everything, and that's against the rules. But what I'm saying is, like, in baseball, you saw it with a guy like, Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray, like they
A.J.
were
Brown.
Right. Like, this is what I'm saying. So are we going to get to a point where, okay, Shedeur Sanders goes to the Browns and he goes, nah, I don't want to go there. I'm going to instead go back to college for another year. The Browns would hold on to his rights. But I mean, I'm curious to know what we could like, if that's on the horizon.
I think the problem is when you sign with the agent, it kind of nullifies anything there. Like, you can't go back after you sign with an agent and stuff like that. It's going to be interesting, because the language of that is kind of different than what it used to be, because you can essentially have agents now in college with NIL and all that. So, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. Again, we'll see how that goes down the line. But to get in kind of the undrafted free agents that the Eagles now have reportedly signed. Now, they haven't come out with the list. I'm expecting the list to probably come out tomorrow, with them having minicamp this weekend, rookie minicamp this weekend. So right now, what you have is running back Montrell Johnson out of Florida, running back Shunderick Powell out of Central Arkansas, wide receivers Darius Cooper out of Tarleton State, Taylor Morin out of Wake Forest, linebacker Lance Dixon out of Toledo, cornerback BJ Mays out of Texas A&M, safety Brandon Johnson out of Oregon, safety Maxon Hook out of Toledo, and offensive tackle Holland Pierce out of Rutgers. If you've seen the show the last month, Holland Pierce is probably one of my favorite prospects. So, and again, I have Maxon Hook and Holland Pierce on the screen here, the pictures on the right-hand side of the screen here. So, to me, those are the two guys I think that potentially could make either the practice squad or the 53-man roster.
You also, and again, I'm on pff.com. I see minicamp invites.
But they've been fluctuating. So that's the only thing.
I'm on this list right now. Ife Ade from Sam Houston State, Nasir Morgan Sr. from Delaware Valley, Talik Carr out of Houston, Kamon Rucker out of North Carolina, Joseph Vaughn out of UCLA, and Isaiah Green out of Campbell.
Now, there's been at least, I think, I don't know, Matt, maybe 5 or 6 more invites that we've seen that just haven't been reported on that site. So it's going to be interesting.
Well, and there was at least one report that said that
Anthony, check it in.
Sean Taylor's brother was going to sign with us.
Taylor, yeah,
Taylor, which would have been really cool. But he actually did sign with Washington, which I think is pretty cool. As much as I don't like Washington,
that tracks.
it's pretty sweet. But yeah, and out of that list that you mentioned, and we'll get into this a little bit, I'd imagine. But Chip, out of that list that you just mentioned out of the minicamp invites, that Kaiman Rucker name jumps out at me, especially. He's a guy that I thought would be drafted in the 4th, 5th round, to be honest with you. And I was kind of surprised he didn't. I know the knock on him is, short arms, and I guess that's it. But I mean, he's got decent size, 6'2", 265. He was ranked by PFF as number 147 on their big board. So like, he's a decent player. Like they had him ranked as a top 50. He was, I want to say he was like 12th among edges. Something like that. But anyway, he had pretty good stats in just 8 games in 2024. He had 6 sacks, 8 tackles for a loss. And the year prior, when he had a full season, he had 61 tackles, 15 TFLs, 8.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery. So, I mean, the dude's productive. I was surprised to see him go undrafted. I'm even more surprised to see him as a minicamp invite rather than a true UDFA.
Yeah, and I think, for him, to me, he's very intriguing because of the production. He's giving you production. If you go back and you watch the Virginia game, I know someone had put on the Virginia tape. He just absolutely wrecks the game. And, he's the type of player that I'd love to take a chance on. I think that's what you're going to see. You're going to see Eagles probably release a handful of players and then maybe sign a player or two, maybe that were the minicamp invites. And, again, they can also cut some of the undrafted free agents they sign as well. So again, there's fluidity there because we don't know exactly who they're signing yet. Some of these minicamp invites could be a signing if they cut someone. And the thing is, like, you just don't know. So to me, I just think when you can never have enough edge rushers, especially with a guy with so much talent that he has. You don't know what he could bring to your roster, what he could bring to your team, your defense, how you can coach him up. Is he moldable? Like how can you get the most out of him? And he's a player that when I saw that he was going to be an invite, I said, wow, I think after their minicamp, hopefully he gets a contract because I've liked what I've seen from him over the last couple of years. And again, the production is there with him. So for me, I was surprised he wasn't drafted, or even signed as an undrafted free agent. So that's just a little surprising there, but I definitely want to see what he brings. And then none of the other minicamp invites really are that intriguing. He was the most intriguing when you look at that.
Yeah, but I could see them getting rid of a guy like Keagy Henry, for example, who's been a bit of a journeyman, a little bit of a disappointment based on where he, his pedigree out of Clemson, I believe it was. He's bounced around to Dallas, to Washington, to here. Like I could see them clipping him for a guy like Rucker, a similar skill set, similar size. I think Rucker gives you a little bit more about what Vic is looking for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he's got the pass coverage abilities. Has a couple interceptions in his college career, so I think he'd be worth taking a look at. I would imagine he gets some sort of offer after minicamp.
Well, and the other piece of it is, I mean, these guys that you said that they might be willing to cut. I mean, they've been in the system a year, 2 years, something like that. And if they still haven't gotten to a point where they are getting full on roster invites and things like that, I mean, you got to give these rookies a chance. And these guys that they're going to cut, they're probably going to catch on somewhere else. But I mean, at some point you gotta pull the Band-Aid off.
Yeah. Well, and we've seen Howie use these kinds of mini camps as a way to keep tabs on a practice squad throughout the year too. Like a lot of this is let's get eyes on him, even if we don't have a spot for him now. If he's around, if he's around in July and we have an injury, we'll bring him in. So I think there's a little bit of that going in here, but
especially now with the expansion of the practice squad. I mean, that is a whole nother moving part of a organization now that it wasn't necessarily like before. You would have, 5 guys on the practice squad and they'd be there the entire season.
And then then they moved up to 7 or 8 guys, and then it went to 10, but then they jumped after COVID. They jumped it up to
12. It was 12 at one
12
point.
and then 16.
But yeah, I think the cry all offseason has been D-line, D-line. We need edge rushers. We need defensive tackles. I was actually surprised to see them not bring in any interior defensive linemen.
So Anthony has a question: how many D tackle do they keep? So when you look at the defensive tackle position, now they drafted Ty Robinson, and you look at basically what the depth is. Of course, Jordan Davis today. The 5th-year option was exercised. It was funny. They had that post exercised, and it has him running out of the tunnel. It's pretty funny there. But
especially since there's so many comments about his conditioning, I thought that was pretty interesting choice of words there. So right now they have Thomas Booker, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Gabe Hall, Moro Ojomo, Byron Young. So they have 6 true interior defensive linemen. So unless they bring in some competition, I'd say they're pretty close. And they have Ty Robinson, so they have 7. Yeah. So I think you usually want to go 2 deep at each spot.
To me, I think they have enough depth there, and it's quality depth. Like I liked what I saw from Thomas Booker. I think he's going to be battling it with Ty Robinson to get the Moro Ojomo playing time this year, because I think Ojomo is going to bump up to Milton Williams' spot there, and we're going to see Gabe Hall. He was a highly touted guy out of Baylor, then struggled in Baylor, undrafted, was on the practice squad all last year. And Byron Young was a 3rd-round pick of the Raiders a couple of years ago, I believe. Yeah. And they waived him, and the Eagles scooped him up, and they since kept him on the roster and then IR'd him.
Yeah, they stashed.
There's some potential there, maybe see what they can get out of him. But it's going to be interesting to see what they do with that position. But I think they're pretty good. I don't think they're going to bring any veterans in unless there's injuries that happen. To me, I think they're where they are right now.
I still think they're rolling the dice here with that nose tackle position. And we talk about this annually. I think since Jordan Davis was drafted, is like if he goes down, who's your space eater?
Yep.
Right. Like it's not like granted, Jalen Carter's taking up double teams all game, but like Booker played really well, but he's 295. Like he's not a big beefy dude. He's not like a Viavetta like eating up the middle of the defense.
I saw I think it was Seattle. They signed Jonathan Hankins.
Yeah.
This week. I think that would be like the guy you would want to be as like the backup nose to be just in case a filler or something. And again,
Ika didn't stick on the squad after last year.
Yeah, and again,
speaking of,
don't be surprised if that's something they look at. Maybe a team gets rid of somebody and they stash them on the squad. I expect that to happen. But Anthony's also talking about RJ. I think he said Moten. Was invited to minicamp. They had him at the local day, linebacker / safety from Florida. Again, it's like intriguing to kind of see.
Played for us, right?
Yes, his dad was drafted in 1987, I guess, by the Eagles. I saw somebody post. But again, that's another player. But to me, I think Rucker is the guy I believe that could get signed. Now I know they also brought in the rugby player that was a Carson Patu. I think he's like I saw there was a couple of variances of
he's fast.
What he weighed and his height and weight. I saw 6'1", 243. I don't know if he lost some weight. I saw 6 foot and 276.
Yeah, I saw that too.
So
I'd venture to guess he's around the 240 mark.
Yeah, to me that's what, and that's what I said, linebacker / edge. Yeah, apparently he's gonna be practicing at. So it's gonna be interesting to see with that. But when we look at, I want to get into the undrafted guys and who you like. Now, of course, I'm going to bring up Holland Pierce because that's who I've talked about.
Yep.
And listen, I think it's Darian Kennard has number 72. I'm sorry, but you got to give it to Holland Pierce. He looks like that Trey Thomas clone, like the size. Trey Thomas was around 6'7", 6'8" area. Big guy. And Holland Pierce, 6'8", 341 pounds, 36-inch arms. Like he had one of the longest
88-inch wingspan.
Yeah, the longest wingspan. That is absolutely insane. And the thing about him too is when you look at his play time, 2020 he redshirted. He played 1 game as a reserve walk-on.
Yeah.
2021 played 13 games, 12 starts at right tackle. 22, 12 starts or 12 games, started all 12 games. Yeah, 12 starts at right tackle. 23, he had 13 starts at left tackle. And then in last year, he was second team all Big Ten, started all 13 games at left tackle. So he's played both sides of the line. He gives you, you got basically the functionality, the versatility that we like to talk about when we talk about the offensive lineman. So
Yes,
I think
that's
he is
big.
super intriguing. And like to me, like with that size, and if he's going to play in the preseason, if he has any type of like, wow, he's got like, if you could see the tools with him in practice in the preseason, there is, to me, I just don't think there's any way that they potentially cut him because I think there's other players on the roster that they could cut offensive linemen, multiple guys, even guys that were on the 53 last year that they could cut and stash on the practice squad. A guy with his size, and if he shows any type of talent, it could be like the Jordan Mailata of when they drafted him late, and then they, we talked about it on our show early because he was in his 3rd year and we didn't see much out of him in that offseason, and we're like, the injuries and stuff like that, like he's not going to last, but they keep keeping him on the roster. What are they doing? I think that could be something with Pierce, especially with that size. You can't teach that size.
You can't teach size. That's what I was going to say. And then again, if you look at the success that Stoutland has had with project players, I mean, Jordan Mailata is a reason why there should be the Jeff Stoutland wing of assistant coaches in Canton, Ohio.
Yeah.
And if he is able to do the same thing with Pierce, I mean, he is so big. He is so big.
All these linemen that we brought in the draft and post-draft process have been massive. They obviously have a type. But I mean, Pierce, regardless of how big he is pretty athletic. And let's not mention the most important part, or forget the most important part. He wears a neck roll. Which
we did have a lot of conversation about neck rolls.
Automatically means he's going to be an All-Pro. But no, he looked good at the Shrine Bowl. The only knock on him is the lack of bend. He has a tendency to kind of lean, especially against smaller, faster guys to try to get a jump. So that's the kind of thing that can be coached out of him. I'm not super worried about that. He's got the athleticism. He's got the tenacity. He's got the mentality that Stout likes in an offensive tackle. He's obviously going to learn from 2 of the best in the league right now, arguably the best tandem of offensive tackles in the league. So I think that's a huge get for them, and they obviously like him. They gave him $180K guaranteed as a UDFA, which is like 85% of their budget or something.
Yeah. You get a budget, and then the owner, which the Eagles always pay more because they want to try to secure
they get
some guys. But there was another guy that they drafted. Apparently, Quinion Mitchell knows him really well. Maxon Hook, the safety out of Toledo. To me, he screams like Colt Anderson vibes, like special teams guy out on it's to me like he tested pretty well. He's 6'1.5", 202, and like 4.55 40 isn't always the best, especially for a safety. But listen, I just think that, and to me, I thought he was a draftable player, and he went undrafted, and they were able to scoop him up. And I think he was roommates with Quinion, I believe they were saying.
Yeah. Well, and he graded out pretty well. I mean, he's, to your point, I mean, he's not a scrub. I mean, he's a decent player. PFF had him. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say they got 2 guys out of Toledo. So apparently they really liked the 4. Idea of, well, I'm looking at Lance Dixon and Maxon Hook. Like they really liked what Quinion Mitchell brought to the table. So they're like, you know what? Toledo is now a powerhouse school.
Yeah. That's their
holy Toledo.
Forget Georgia. Let's go Toledo. But
I mean, Georgia.
PFF has him rated pretty highly. He beat up on my Duquesne Dukes in the first game of the season. Unfortunately, I got a good look at Hook in the first game. But I mean, he's like an 81 overall, 77 in coverage, 80, almost 84 in run. And he actually had a 20% forced incompletion rate, which I thought was pretty interesting. Mainly a box player in 24. He had almost 500 snaps in the box, only about 200 or 245 deep, and then 80 in the slot. So I think, again, the knock on him is the lack of athleticism, but they had the same concerns about Blankenship.
He's turned out okay.
Lazy comp. He reminds me a little bit from like a body build of Blankenship, his style of play. So I'd imagine he'll be a Sirianni favorite throughout minicamp, throughout training camp, and I would assume he's going to be a special teamer, and that's where he'll make his money.
And I think too, when you look at him and you look at the safety, especially if they don't add any more veteran safeties, they don't add any veteran safety, and they go with what they have.
That's terrifying.
I believe he could beat out a Tristan McCollum. Like, I know, Chip, it's a little scary, but again, if you think Makuba is what he could be for you, you have him, you have see what Sidney Brown did, you have Blankenship, and then they roll the dice here. I believe that they'll sign a vet safety. I just think they're going to sign somebody, but it's something where don't be surprised if.
But not at the expense of giving these young guys a chance now, because now they've been in the system for a year or so, 2 years or so. They've got to see if they can do it.
I still think a guy like Justin Simmons makes sense. I know people are probably going to think I'm crazy, but Justin Simmons makes sense if he's not overly expensive, because he's probably only going to be a 1 year rental, right? He knows the system. He knows.
Hopefully, he's not like Wayne Bishop when he was a good old 1 year rental back in 2002. Couldn't run in the last game. Sorry.
But I mean, at that point, you're looking for a veteran leader, right? And you're looking for someone who can be a coach on the field, who's not going to take snaps away from like a Makuba or Sidney Brown, whoever wins that job. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what his mindset is. I would assume he still wants to be a starter, but if he's okay with potentially losing a starting job, I'd be looking at someone like that.
I mean, I think the thing with Sidney Brown, and it's always like he should have the direct line of winning this job, but it's can he stand up and last for a whole season, because he hasn't been able to.
Yeah, that's another question too, and especially too last year, especially towards like the middle to late part of last year when either CJ went down or Reed had to leave the field. They put Tristan McCollum in. They didn't put Sidney Brown in.
Yeah.
Like the only time Sidney Brown got in the game was when both the safeties were taken out for backups because the game was over.
Do you think that's in the
Super Bowl?
Do you think that's from a lack of faith in him, or do you think that's we're still kind of concerned about his leg and we're limiting?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's more maybe of the injury aspect, but I think they just trusted McCollum a little bit more, and that's kind of scary.
I'm interested to be seen with a full off season too.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Yeah, he's going to be healthy this offseason. It's him not having to rehab, but they also signed safety out of Oregon, Brandon Johnson, who is a smaller safety, but. It was interesting because at first we thought Gabe Taylor was going to come over undrafted, but he was doing minicamp invite with Washington. I thought they were going to have 3 safeties. Then I'm like, I don't know if they're going to sign a veteran safety. They're signing all these undrafted guys, safety and stuff, but definitely still could see a veteran being added. But the one player I know we talked about here in the undrafted guys, I know you took a liking to Montrell Johnson. And then we also talked about Darius Cooper. I really like Cooper for what he showed you. Like when you're in a small school, you want to see you dominate that competition. Like you don't want to be average, because what are you really going to do when you move up in different levels? And he absolutely dominated, and he has the size. So I'm really intrigued to see, especially with the Eagles wide receiver room because the depth, to me, I think the last two spots are open, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So there's a spot there potentially for somebody. And, Darius Cooper is a guy that, showed flashes at Tarleton State and really put up the numbers to, back what he showed you on the field.
Yeah, good athletic testing too. And he's built like Josh Huff. That's like the third straight week we've mentioned Josh Huff. But I like that build, that like running back build for a slot receiver. And you mentioned Montrell Johnson. He to me, it was an interesting pickup. UDFA. I was surprised they didn't address running back in the draft, to be honest with you. I know they just signed AJ Dillon. I don't know what his neck situation is, but that's a scary diagnosis for any running back, especially someone who uses power like he does. We saw that with Penny, right? Rashad Penny. We thought he was going to be a beast. He came in with a neck injury. They said he was cleared, and then
barely played.
He got 3 snaps that year. So
essentially,
I maybe it's PTSD for Rashad Penny, but I wanted them to look at a guy like Tootin. That's for you, Chip. Or like Manai.
He got drafted pretty early.
Yeah. He's he'll have a good career, I think. But Montrell Johnson, he's not a little back. I mean, he's 5'11", 216. He plays faster than his testing is, in my opinion. I think he could be a good rotational change of pace guy. He plays through contact, which is obviously something we all love as Eagles fans. Really fun highlight tape if you ever get a chance to just check it out and watch him. Home run hitter when he has the ball, but he had about 600 yards and 6 touchdowns last year with Florida, about 6 yards per carry. So I think he could be one of those guys that flashes in preseason and becomes that Nay Brown Award winner that kind of either squeaks in the roster because he kills it.
The names that are being brought up tonight are just wild.
That's just, I'm old.
That's what this part of the offseason is.
I think he could open some eyes for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what what these players show and everything. And that's the fun, because the fun part of it is like it's the unknown. You just don't know. Someone could be, the next Corey Clement, the next, Jason Peters was an undrafted free agent for the Buffalo Bills. So you just never know what kind of potential that you can get out of these guys and, what they can show you, what they could be. And it even goes for the draft picks too. The later round guys, you just don't know, who they could become. Jason Kelsey was a 6th round pick. So like anything is possible. Trim Cole was a 5th round pick.
What about your boy Lance Dixon, the 12-year starter in college football, former
Penn Stater, 2 years at Penn State, then went to West Virginia, then went to Toledo. So
I mean, there you go, powerhouse Toledo again. In a couple of years, we're going to be saying, Shedeur Sanders was a 5th round pick. So
maybe, or we could say, yeah, we told you so.
But I will be the one that says that.
But the problem for him, history is not on his side for that. If you look at all the 5th round picks, the only Pro Bowler was Mark Brunell. So
if you recall, about a week ago, I sat on this show and said what I thought about my personal scouting of Shedeur Sanders, and y'all called me crazy.
What was that?
That I thought he was nowhere near a 1st or 2nd round pick.
I would never call you crazy because I never thought he was worth the hype. I haven't said anything about Shedeur Sanders on the show for a reason, because I am not a fan. I'm not a fan of.
Neither am I.
I'm not a fan of his attitude. I'm not a fan of his play. But I'll leave it at that.
I'll just say, if the attitude was different, I still think he would have probably been drafted at worst in the 3rd round. But but he wanted to be legendary instead of be humble. when you come in with that attitude, and maybe he learned something from it. So everyone has to go through something and
Well, he's
figure it
got
out.
no choice to have learned something from it. If he's going to have any kind of success, he had to have learned from it.
I mean, Johnny Manziel didn't until it was too late. And he kind of reminds me of that same kind of like, my shit don't stink kind of attitude.
I just don't know
because it never has.
But that's not going to fly in NFL locker rooms.
Because it never has stunk.
Yeah. Well,
I just don't understand what the Browns are doing. All these quarterbacks, you're not going to be able to get reps.
Yeah, I didn't get that.
Well, Deshaun Watson's probably not playing this year, so you could just exit him off of that. But you have Flacco, Pickett, Gabriel, and Sanders now. So,
and you traded for Pickett. Like, it's not like you traded a 5th-round pick, essentially.
Yeah. So that's for them to worry about. We don't have to worry about that, so that's at least a good thing. But no, it's fun to see what these guys can do, and we'll go from there. Maybe we'll get a couple signings from it, to go over next week to see potentially. We'll go over that. We'll go over the fun game of numbers and who has what numbers, because that's always fun. What rookies got what, and that's always a fun thing to go over and see. And we will be doing a fun show with a former Philadelphia Eagle. That'll be announced at a later date. So that's a fun little thing. We'll, go back a little bit of history during his playing time, maybe get some stories, and then talk about essentially the NFL now and, his position, talk about how it's changed, if it's changed, and, get some fun stuff from him and, learn a little bit too. So I always enjoy that, and especially with the off season, try to get some different type of content in here. We are going to have some fun content coming into the summer here. We have, of course, next week, like I just mentioned, and then the week after that, the NFL schedule is released before our show. So we'll have the full Eagle schedule. That'll be fun to break down kind of how the Eagle schedule looks, who they're playing when, how many primetime games they have. Do they have any specialty games on any of the holidays and everything like that? So that's going to be a fun show. But I do want to do an Eagles quarter century team between us. I think that'll be a fun idea, fun show. And then also there is a grid, Eagles grid, that somebody on X, I think it's Jamal on X, right? Yep. Yeah. He posted it. I have that. I want to go over that too. So a couple fun, different type of content shows to get us going. So it's going to be fun again. I know, but it should be a good time. I know Chip likes the summer shows because of the content isn't as fluid as it is during the season. There isn't as much news, and especially
I don't mind the summer shows, but for the fact that I'm so locked into baseball mode.
Well, that's going to happen. But I think too is like the problem is when the Eagles are this good, you don't have the turmoil and the drama and the bullshit that we had for the first 2 years that we did this. And, you had all of that. So bad. All that stuff coming out. Every week there was something different.
Every week on like Tuesday, something would drop that we would have. I'm like, great, our show for Wednesday is writing itself.
Yeah. So we don't have that. So we got to come up with some ideas. But listen, there's always ideas. There's always fun stuff. There's always some good stuff to talk about. And I think like last year we had the top 100 Eagles of all time. So, got to come up with some different things here. The quarter century team's a good one that I saw. I think that's really fun to really, and I was thinking about it too. I was thinking about the quarter century team, and it's like, it's actually pretty tough when you really think about all the guys from the last 25 years, because it's probably the most successful, time the Eagles have ever. It is the most successful time. They have 2 Super Bowls.
And I think the one thing, Johnny and Matt, you guys like to talk about a lot is the numbers of it all. We're holding on to some numbers of guys that aren't as successful as the players that are currently are currently on the team. And okay, love me some Randall Cunningham, right? There's no reason why the number 12 should not be given out. Love me some LaShawn McCoy, but I think another 2 seasons of Saquon Barkley makes LaShawn McCoy's number very, very available. You know what I mean? I think it's available now. I just
should be.
You know, I get the
why isn't 71?
Again, if they are in the Hall of Fame, I think that's a different conversation. The actual NFL Hall of Fame. I don't think anybody should wear Dawkins as 20. I don't.
I think every number should be unretired, and then you use it as a tribute to that player. You have to earn it, like 18 at LSU, like 11 at Penn State. Like you have to be a badass mofo to wear 20, right? Or 92 or 99.
Well, I mean, then you have the whole Giants issue where Abdul Carter wants Lawrence Taylor's number, and Lawrence Taylor basically said, "Screw off."
Yeah, which I think is hilarious, by the way.
Yeah.
But then you had the flip side where Warren Moon was like, "Yeah, go ahead and wear number 1."
I'll give it to you.
Malik Neighbors wearing number 1, which is retired by the Giants.
Yeah.
You know, he asked the family and stuff if he could wear number 1. They said, yeah. So it's like you have those as well, which I'm all for that. Like that's great. But I think too, when you look at it, is the Eagles have 9 officially retired numbers. Then if you look at the numbers that are off limits that aren't worn, you have 12, you have 25, you have 71, 91, 86, I think. 86 was worn,
86
right?
86 and 87 have been dished out since then.
They have been dished out. Okay.
But there were years. There were like 5 years where those were not given out.
55 right now. You're not going to see that. Then 65 because Lane Johnson. 62 isn't one. You're at like 16, 17 numbers. You can't have that many numbers. Like you're going to have to start. We're going to have 00 worn. Okay, we're going to have a numbers emoji. We're going to have a smiley face. Like it gets to a point where
Swoop has to change his jersey if you go 00s. You'll have to make Swoop 000.
That is true.
Yeah, I think these unofficial retired numbers are stupid. I personally think retired numbers are stupid. You know my stance on that. It's very public. But at least get 25 out there, 12, 71, 91. I'd argue 55 until it's retired. 86, 87. Give them,
but you get to a point where you can't retire them. And then people saying, oh, well, maybe you should just let some offense and defensive players wear the same number. No, this isn't college. Like, enough. At some point, you can't retire everybody's number. You do a tribute. You do a wall, a number, a wall of fame where you have their number and their name. And other teams do it. The Cowboys do it. Now, I don't want to mention a division rival, but they do it, and they put the number and the player's name around the stadium. Eagles, if they have to do that or make some type of museum thing where they could do a number wall, do something.
Well, the different. Eagles have those numbers up. Like they're in the stadium. They're in the rafters. You can see them quite clearly. Yeah. But 88 is a badge of honor for the Cowboys.
Yeah.
CD Lamb wanted to be number 1 or number 2, and they're like, no, you have to be 88 to honor Michael Irvin.
Yeah, and Des Bryant was before him. So when you look at that, like the Eagles could do something like Eagles could have did something like that with Randall. Like McNabb could have been 12, and then Ertz could have been 12. Like you could always do something. Right. I just think we need to just stop it.
So like Randall now is at best the
third,
Jaws,
the third best quarterback in Eagles history, and maybe the 5th most important.
It's an interesting, like to me, I think some of the older guys like
a show, Chip.
What's that?
It sounds like a show.
Yeah.
Right?
It does.
There you go. Write it down. Write it down, Johnny.
I'll write it down. I'll keep it all in here. Forget it tomorrow. But with that, I think it's going to end it here. We'll be back next week and going to enjoy it and going to end it as we always do with our 2 words: Go Birds.
Go Birds.
This is Matt Ware. Hey, for all the Eagle content you need, go follow All About the Birds. They do a damn thing. Check them out.
Hey, Eagles fans, I may be in Tampa, but I know where to find the best Eagles content out there. Check out my friends at All About the Birds.
Philadelphia, what's up? This your boy Freddie Mitchell, aka Fred X. It's all about the bird.
All birds all the time. All birds all the time.
All About the Birds provides you with weekly analysis, game recaps, informative interviews, and it's all birds all the time.